presentation.
Yes, now you can start, sir. Chidaran sir.
Okay. Yes. Namaste, everybody. Good evening to everyone. Very nice to get together once more on this Thursday evening, and we together apply our minds to yet another interesting question: what is meant by wanting to become? This wanting to become is different from becoming something. Please note, wanting to become, we are considering this in the psychological domain, and somebody becomes something that is incidental, that is bound to happen. For example, somebody becomes a father, somebody becomes a mother, somebody becomes head of an institution, somebody gets old, even growing old happens. Whether you like it or not, many of these things happen. And whatever happens because of the interplay of many causes, many factors, is totally different than what we are trying to talk about in this session. Please note the words once more. We are talking about wanting to become, and I am connecting it with human sorrow. I will try to open this topic in a manner that most people will be able to understand. So, we have something called an image of ourselves. Every one of us typically carries a certain image. The gross physical idea, how tall we are, what color of skin we possess, and factual things like whose son or daughter we are, where we went to college, what our profession is. 100 things are factual, objective, and that objective domain is all right in its own place. But please pay attention to what I will now touch upon. There is an image within us which is psychological. I have an X amount of money in my bank account. The money that I have, the figures, is factual. But with that X amount of money in the bank, I may have an image in my own mind of being a very successful person, or sometimes an image of my not having reached where I had to reach, etc. That is called psychology. I compare myself with my brothers or sisters. I compare myself with the college classmates and so on and so forth. If I am an upper middle class person in the society, I won't compare myself with Birla or Ambani, nor will I compare myself with some poor coolie at the other railway station. But I will compare myself with certain people with whom I identify. We studied together. At one time, we sat together in the classroom. We are children of the same mother. Our father left behind the same amount of money to both of us. But now this brother has gone way high. I am way down, etc. Who is talking all this? What is this mental chatter? Who is doing all this noise? It is the psychology. And psychology implies not just a logically thinking mind, but it implies a number of conditionings, number of equations that somehow our mind has drawn. The mind says, because of some influences, To have a house of such size and to have one or preferably two cars in the garage and to have that much of social contacts, etc., is something. Without them, I am nowhere. Who told you you are nowhere? Who told you you are nobody if you don't have cars, if you don't have a large house? Oh, no, 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 don't tell me that. I am very keen, and if I don't have those, I think I am a big failure, etc. The conditioned mind speaks like that. On one extreme, we have cases of so called saintly people about whom I think Krishnaji also said something like, the blessed is the person who has nothing. Uh, Happy is the person, happy is the man who has nothing. There's a whole booklet by that title. Having nothing, the person is happy. Then another extreme, somebody has a lot of name and fame, lot of wealth too, lot of people to admire her, and yet she is miserable. That is where psychology comes in. The objective factual position and what our psychology makes out of it can be sometimes poles apart. I could be a millionaire, I could look down at myself. I could be with modest means, and yet I could think of myself as being very fortunate. Therefore, as we dig deeper into the ways of human life, we find that there is a chattering mind, a noisy mind, which says, hey, I must become as popular as she is. I must become as wealthy as he is, and so on. This psychological disturbance, which turns a blind eye to the blessings that I have, to the good fortune that I have, to the plus points that I already possess. To all of them, this mind turns a blind eye and starts complaining. And in that backdrop, the mind says, I must become. Therefore, friends, this wanting to become is actually not based on factual needs, but it is actually chasing an image. Somebody comes along and says, my grandfather was so popular, he was an advisor to the king of Baroda or the Maharaja of Mysore or of Jaipur, wherever, My grandfather was like that, and as the grandson of that famous person, should I not become somebody in this society? Should I not become? One says. And if somebody asks that person a question, why should you? Why should you become? If you have some skills, use them, give the best of yourself to your near and dear ones, to the society, to the field of your work, and let rest of it happen. Why are you putting the cart before the horse? Why are you imagining this is how my image has to be, and what shall I do to arrive there? When we think a little deeply on life, we'll discover that chasing an image, either in the worldly matters or in the so called religious or spiritual context, is very foolish indeed. Chasing an image, it is like somebody says, I don't mind being hungry, but I want people in the town to think that I am well fed. I don't mind being sick, but I want my neighbors to think that I am fit and fine. Oh my God, what is wrong with you? Fine. You must not be concerned with neighbors thinking that you are having good health. But this lady or this man would not listen to you. No, 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 no. What people think of me is very important. Whether I have 2 meals a day or not comes next. Most important is The neighborhood should think and they should envy me. You know, there is this psychology. In fact, somebody said, it is better to be envied than to be pitied. Quotations are galore. Quotations are available plenty. It is better to be envied. Neighbors should envy me than to be pitied. Given the choice, I would not want everybody to look down at me. I would rather want everybody to be jealous of me. Stupid, foolish. That is what is called materialistic thinking. When we have given undue importance to what people talk about us, which in no way means we got to be thick skinned, we got to be utterly insensitive. The whole town looks at us as dirty and we say, I don't care what they think. Not in that irresponsible sense. There's a big difference between being irresponsible, insensitive, deaf and blind, etc., and being fully aware of what people are talking, but not losing one's bearings. What am I here for? What am I doing with my life? What are my true priorities? What are things with which I am truly concerned? Have things gone topsy-turvy? Have things gone upside down? Have I, in the name of pleasing people, have I forgotten the true purpose of life? Has inner peace become less important to me than making or impressing people? One has to ask these questions. Therefore, friends, I am saying things which all of you know pretty much. Mystics like Krishnaji also have often talked about emptying the consciousness. That's a powerful way of saying whatever we tried to elaborate in the last few minutes. Emptying the consciousness. Because this consciousness in our human mind is filled with, or I should use a stronger word, is stuffed with. You take a box and stuff so many things into it. There's hardly any more space. Stuff, stuffed paratha, stuffed something else. Even in cooking, they talk about stuffing something. I'm not good in cooking, so I cannot give more examples. But surely there is something called stuffed paratha and plain paratha. So we have our consciousness stuffed with all kinds of notions. I met once two Swamis, and one of them with chest up said, both of us are disciples of the same Guru, but I am 1 year senior to him. So the Swamiji also was carrying an idea of I'm 1 year senior. So I asked what is meant by senior. He said, our Guru gave sannyas to me in 1986, and our Guru gave sannyas to this guy in 1987. Therefore, though he has more knowledge, he has no more Sanskrit, he can chant better. I ask him not to forget that I am senior to him by 1 year. That is called stuffing. Everywhere, and no institution, no organization is spared from it. Everywhere, people carry a sense of who is senior, who is junior. In government organizations, somebody who is 2 days senior to somebody else goes to court for certain rights and privileges or some promotion and so on, without elaborating more on it. Stuffing the mind with things which are not valid really. How does it matter who received some initiation before or later? How does it matter who went to some prestigious college and who went to a less known college? At the most, those things have a little meaning in some limited context, in some areas. But most of the context, between A and B, If A had gone to a prestigious institution like Indian Institute of Technology and got a degree in aeronautical engineering, and B went to a much less known college and basic degree was simple mechanical engineering, or later on working in an aeronautical company, B acquired a lot of skills, lot of knowledge, lot of insights, and down the road in 10 years, this B, whose basic degree also was not in aeronautical engineering, knows how planes are to be designed, how planes fly, what problems engines in aeroplanes face, in so many other matters. B knows better. And would you not agree with me that that is what matters? 10 years down the road, if A says, whatever it is, I am from IIT Kanpur in aeronautical engineering, yours was only a degree in mechanical engineering, please do not forget. What is that? That is called stuffing the mind with information that has lost its relevance. Therefore, in numerous matters, you and I allow certain equations, certain influences to enter into our consciousness, and then we become sorrowful. We look at somebody who apparently, which is very questionable really, but apparently, as it seems, has gone ahead. And we have apparently lagged behind. And the sorrow that I am talking about in this session is the sorrow born of self-judgment, the sorrow born of self-evaluation, and the anxiety about self-improvement. No wonder Krishnaji made an incisive statement. Sorrow does not end by self-improvement, he said. Sorrow ends in ending of the self. A very thought-provoking statement. Vast majority of human beings, among whom you and I also are, we do not claim that we stand above humanity. We are very much part of humanity. The vast majority of humanity are very concerned with self-improvement. People are talking about how do I meditate better? How do I get less angry than before? How can I bring my jealousy down by 20%? This is the language people use without thinking much about it. But then, when we are more attentive, more watchful of what is going on, we realize that that kind of questions are so childish. For there is one image in me, I am a very short-tempered person. Then there is another image that if not fully free of anger, I would like to be less angry than now, 20% less. So there is one image, I am so angry so often. Another image, a person who gets angry very rarely. And I want to go from this image to that image. I want to fit myself into the second image. Alas, what is this going on? Am I an image at all? Or am I aware of these images? Can I be aware of images? And as there is mental chatter, call it noise, about this image and that image and her image and his image, and there is an attempt on our part to fit ourselves, or you may say our self. There is a self in us. We want to fit it into the image of somebody out there. We hear about some celebrity, we hear about some famous person. It could be spiritually, recognized people, Vivekananda or some Mother Teresa, some Shankaracharya or whoever, or it could be some worldly person. It could be people successful in the world, artists, singers, business people, and so on. No matter what, we have an image of that person. What that person really was, we don't know. Because our idea of how he was or how she lived is based on some published material. And I tell you, the published material is always edited, is always modified. In fact, there are some ashrams where they publish a book about their master or guru or whoever, and in 5 years they bring out an edited version where they carefully remove some paragraphs. If you have have access to the first edition of one of the books on that so-called guru, you will find that there are some paragraphs which are not in good taste. That is how the management of the ashram, after some complaints came from so-called devotees or disciples or whoever, in the second edition they remove some passages and they justify doing that, saying we should not disturb the faith of our followers. Well, that justification doesn't go far. Why don't you place the plain truth before the readers? Now what you have presented after 5 years or 10 years, after editing the first volume, first edition, what you have now presented is actually, they call it engineered. You have now re-engineered the whole thing. So, even I tend to be very influenced by some edited versions of the life and teachings of some so-called great people, once more, in the spiritual or in the mundane world, and then we say, that is how I got to be. That is how I ought to be. That is how I should be. So we get carried away by ideas of I should be like that, I should be like this. And in the process, the tragedy is I do not watch, I do not see the nature of the self in me. Because the picture of how the self should be becomes so noisy, it exerts so much pressure upon us. The picture of the self as put together by memory, as put together by conditionings, doesn't become very clear to us. There are fault lines in our self-image. There are questionable dimensions in what we think about ourselves. When we are depressed or elated, either way, the self that is depressed, the self that is feeling on top of the world, both are some kind of propaganda of the mind. They are not true. They are certain mental noise only. So we say, in wanting to become lies human sorrow. If one were to see through this game that one's mind is playing, and one takes everything tentatively, one says, okay, at this moment there is a certain pain in my mind. There is certain sadness that I didn't become this or that. Hold on. Rather than feeding that thought, pursuing that thought, and laboring to find out how to become what I could not become so far, can I examine that very thought? I must become, you may say, full stop. It's not necessary to add, I must become rich, I must become famous, I must become more scholarly, I must become a better singer, I must become a better writer, speaker, I must become a better husband, You may fill up in 1,000 ways, but my suggestion is, don't fill up that last part. I must become ... Full stop. What is this I must become? Is it based on full knowledge, or is it based on fragments or figments of knowledge? And invariably we see that our intelligence, our human mind is not capable of so-called full knowledge of the whole issue, knowledge of various angles of view of an issue. Even if you have gone and seen the Taj Mahal, you might have seen from the front. Maybe you went one round, but how much can you grasp? After coming back to your hotel, can you say, I saw the Taj Mahal from 360 degrees, from all angles, from above and below and inside. And even if you literally saw, your mind cannot hold all that information in their proper places. Therefore, that was just an analogy. We would say that so is the case with self-knowing. Whatever we know of the self, and then come to an understanding, come to a conclusion. I am worth 4 on the scale of 10. On the scale of 20, I am only on 11. I want to go to 12. I want to go to 15. Hold on. You are saying I am on 11, I am on 4, level 4, etc. is questionable. And what is more, it is a wastage of time, wastage of energy to labor on those kinds of models. Instead, go to the root of thought. Go to the very source of that judgment. Go to the source of that evaluation. You suddenly find yourself in a town where everybody speaks Urdu, let us say. Urdu, and they are enjoying Urdu poetry. But you are a Marathi scholar. In Maharashtra, speaking Marathi, suppose you are much respected. But somehow you ended up somewhere, maybe in Aligarh Muslim University or somewhere, where knowledge of Urdu is valued. And if your heart sinks, you say, oh, I wasted my life learning Marathi. I should have learned Urdu. Hold on. Neither knowing Marathi nor knowing Urdu will make you free from sorrow. Actually, knowing the limitations of any knowledge. Knowing Sanskrit doesn't make you, a liberated person. Though Sanskrit might be the language in which some beautiful philosophical works might have been composed or brought out. With due regard to Sanskrit or Urdu, Marathi or Kannada, knowledge of languages, knowledge of people. If you say, I know top ministers in New Delhi in the present cabinet, that doesn't set you free. Nor is it necessary. If you know ministers in Delhi, if you know 7 languages, well, it may have some use in some context. That's about it. Please do not stretch it beyond those contexts. What sets you free is an insight that really I don't have to know 7 languages. But if I find that I have a certain innate love for learning languages, I may jolly well learn. If I find that somehow because of circumstances I got connected with this number of ministers in New Delhi, fine, that may make you, that may empower you, that may enable you to play certain roles, full stop, not more. Please, because you know a few ministers in New Delhi, because you know 7 languages, your sorrow is not going to become less. Sometimes these things add to your sorrow. Whereas some simple person who knows only 1 language and does not know any politician might be at peace much of the time. And in some rare scenario, she may need the help. So enough of these examples. I am trying to show that here in the psychological domain, there is a certain foolish, immature, and ill-informed chase of some image. And that chase, that going after becoming somebody, is to be questioned in true inquiry. And I would conclude saying there is nothing against becoming head of an institution, nothing against becoming head of department. If you are a lecturer, then you became an assistant professor, and then one day you became head of department, you became principal. In fact, wanting to become head in a certain general sense is all right, because you are actually visualizing a journey, a roadmap of a career with a certain objective view. I want to contribute, I want to work hard, and as I work hard, more responsibility may come to me, and probably one day I may become the principal. Am I ready for it? In a certain objective manner, you visualize. That is very different from becoming emotionally dependent on it. Ah, I have been serving in this college for 20 years and I am nowhere near becoming the principal. Ah, this is not acceptable. Ooh, suppose somebody becomes emotionally, disturbed, then there is a big problem. Otherwise, someone asked right in an earlier session, what is wrong in wanting to become? See, aiming at a certain career growth with a view of being a contributor, being an active person, being a responsible person who is ready to take new challenges, who is ready to serve his or her institution in several ways, and then honestly, she or he checks her own or his own abilities, whether she or he fits into a certain role that is being offered by the management. If somebody honestly checks whether she is fit for becoming the principal, and one day the management says, okay, we want you to be the principal, but this lady has done enough of honest introspection. She will have the courage to say, thank you, sirs, thank you, madams, for offering this to me, but I have examined myself. To become the principal and to do all that administrative work is not my calling. Thank you very much. I'm honored to be given that offer. Like that, she will speak or he will speak, and that those words will come out with certain strength of power of conviction. Whereas if somebody has allowed herself to be hijacked by the glamour, the glitter and glamour of becoming the principal, and accordingly was waiting for a day when the management would ask her to become the principal and say, yeah, 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 and wants to sit there on that chair. Fancies sitting on that chair, fancies signing on some papers as the principal of the institution. This fancy, this worshipping image, this wanting to be looked at in some way by people around, etc., is this cause of sorrow. There is nothing in wanting to become the principal as a certain objective self-assessment and as part of a certain urge and aspiration to contribute. Who nobody would object to that. No philosophy would say, no, 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 never set your eyes on something higher. Always look down and walk. No, philosophy would never ask us to walk with our eyes down. Walk with your eyes up, with your head held high, but don't fall a prey to some fanciful uh, thoughts which become personal ambition, which is all about certain image building, and in the process lose sight of the operation of the self in oneself. It's in that context that we have touched upon this topic, and let me pause here, welcoming to begin with my good friend Sri Harshad Bhai to say a few words, and I guess after that I need to leave at 7:15 for a Sanskrit class, but that will leave another 45, 55, no, 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 20 plus 35 minutes. I am with all of you. Thank you very much.
Harsat sir, please.
Yeah. Are you able to hear my voice?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Thank you, Chidanand
Very
ji.
well.
You have really spoken very very clearly and giving many examples. The 1 minute. The last example which you gave about the principal, I was they wanted to make me principal in 3 different KFI schools, but I said it's not my nature to do administrative work, and I enjoy teaching, communicating with students, and not keeping so much in my mind. My life has been like that. So yes, I remember when you say about gave the example of principal. Now, what happens that when at a very young age in the family, sometimes parents compare their children, maybe boy and girl or younger and older son. And if one of them is very good and they praise one brother, then the other brother feels very bad. And so this happened to me also in my family. I was not very good in studies and I was physically very weak and my skin color was kind of a black dark. So I grew up with a kind of inferiority which came from the family. But then later on, after 6th, 7th standard, I was very good in studies. So there was no inferiority about uh, studying. I was very good student. But there were other kinds of inferiority remain. And even when I went to America, I was comparing myself with Americans who were very tall and strong and they could speak English and they were very smart and I was feeling inferior. So this comes through society, through family, through friends, and we are not aware of it and we suffer a lot. But only when I came across books of Krishnamurti, one book was enough to make me look at these problems which we have, all kinds of problems. Not only this wanting to become, but there are problems of fear, anger, loneliness, jealousy, all that. And Krishnaji was showing the source from where all these problems arise. And by lucky, uh, maybe I had read some good books before Krishnamurti, and maybe I was a bit serious and sensitive. I was sensitive, so I could really go deeper within myself to look from where these problems were coming, whether it is wanting to become or fear or anger or jealousy, because the root cause is same. And it comes from what we call this I or me, this ego. And then a question is, what is this ego? From where does it come? And Krishnaji said that it is coming from thinking itself. And so one has to really go very, very silently looking at how these thoughts and feelings are coming, because our problems are coming from thoughts and feelings. So I could see the beginning of these problems. And that really made me kind of a superior. From inferiority, I went to kind of a superiority that, oh, now I understand myself. And I used to make fun of some people who were traditional people and repeating mantra or something like that. But that is also a problem. Inferiority and superiority both are problems. The balance is looking at what is and not naming it. And our problems comes from this duality of what I am and what I want to be. Or you can say it is between the thinker and thought, because this thinker says, I want to be, and then there is duality comes. But in just observing whatever is this thinking is going on, in just observation, thinking is not a problem. Problem comes when this I, me, comes and then says, I want, I don't want. Now, even like I give example that some people understand very quickly what Krishnamurti is saying, and some people they study for many years, but they they feel that nothing really has changed. So what I'm saying is knowledge of the processes of the mind is one thing, and intellectual knowledge, and looking at very clearly from a different source than thinking is a different, that is, we can call it wisdom. So the knowledge itself doesn't of all the thing, even we can read the book about anger or fear, and it can tell you how to be free, but one cannot become free by just reading books. One has to look within oneself at the deepest level, and without that, there is no deeper change happens. So I give example like in Buddha. Okay, we look at the life of Buddha. He was, everything was what we want. He already had that. He was a prince. He had all the pleasures, and he was married, and he had the power, and people want all these things. But there was something else, that sensitivity and ability to look deeper. So when he saw somebody with a disease and old age and death, he began to reflect on his own life, that will this also happen to me when I become old? I will also deteriorate, and there will be fear and all that problems. So he left, of course, he meditated, and he found the freedom. And in his Sangha, his cousin was Devdatta, who was a very respected monk for many years. And he could speak even like Buddha. He had all the knowledge, but Devdatta was not free from jealousy, and he wanted to take the position of Buddha. And he even tried to plot with the help of with a king, Ajat tried to kill Buddha. So he had gone to that extent in going down in spite of living in a monastery, in Buddha's monastery for many years. And then on the other side, we have Angulimal, who had lived a very criminal life, killing people. And when he came into contact with Buddha, in the first meeting, he began to really look, and he really changed too very quickly. So it is not about how much we study the books, how much experience we have, but how much, how able we are to look at our own self clearly from a different dimension than thinking. And that dimension, Krishnaji calls it awareness, which is not thinking. And the whole teachings of Krishnamurti are on choiceless awareness, which can see everything as they are. And in seeing that, there is a freedom. That seeing itself is the freedom, like perception is the action, what Krishnaji is telling. So there is a lot of suffering, of course, in the world, in every human being. And then there is a cause for that suffering. And then there is an understanding of the suffering. And there is a freedom also exists for human beings. It all depends on how far a human being is able to go in this, uh, whether this freedom is the most important thing in the life of the person, or he takes this study spirituality uh, just because of some escaping from some deeper problems, and then he gets a lottery, and then he says, okay, now I don't want this spirituality, my problems are solved, I have got now money and all that. So one has to be really very, very serious that I feel that people are looking for treasure outside in money and relationship and power. Uh, but the real treasure is buried within us when we find clarity within ourselves, and when we be free from all these problems which affects humanity. And that is why people like Kabir said, तेरे पास हीरे मोती मेरे मन मंदिर में ज्योति कौन हुआ धनवान. So Kabir lived a very poor life materially, but he was very, very rich inward. And same with Mirabai, said Ram Ratan Dhan Payo, Kharche na kute, chor na lute, din din batat savayo. So it is that kind of a treasure which cannot be stolen, and it increases every day. So that is what I feel spiritual life is, that we really look very, very clearly, very deeply within ourselves, see everything clearly, and even if some desire comes, not to escape, but just to watch, not to suppress it and think that everything is all right. Allow it, the desire to flower, and look at it, and neither suppressing it nor indulging it. So it is a kind of a balanced life. So that is what I have to say. I feel finally, I would say that to be really happy, we don't need so much. If we have the basic necessities like food, clothes, and shelter, then it is enough to be really happy if our mind is in a very good condition then looking at the nature, listening to music, uh, doing nothing is also happiness. So everything becomes a source of happiness because that happiness is not coming from outside. And when it is coming from inside, it cannot be stolen. Okay, I have said enough. Thank you very much. Anybody would like to ask question, comment, anything on Chidanandji, what he said or what I said? Welcome. It's open.
May I say a few words, sir?
Yes, sir.
Pradeep.
Pradeepji. Yeah, yes.
What I think, what we lose in this state of, when we are in that state of becoming, what we lose is a very important thing, because this state of becoming shows that it is based on the past and projection and fantasizing in the future. So what we are losing is the present moment. We are sacrificing present moment. That is the greatest danger, and that is the only thing available to us. So virtually we are losing everything. So this is the price we pay, being in that state based on past and fantasizing about future. These are the words. Thank you very much for giving me this.
Yes, they say the present moment is the real present, a real gift. And it depends on how do we take it, the present moment. Either we try to escape by reading something or watching or some movie, and there is a movie going on within us, film. And when we learn how to watch the film going within us, then we don't need really much entertainment, because this watching itself is learning, and it is a source of happiness. So yes, you are right. Present moment has lot to offer, but either we are going into the past or thinking about future. And yes.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
When I say I have read one book that I understand, whether my question is whether I read one book or 1,000 books. I have not met the book, The Authority, sir.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes, our own book is being written every day. So if there is if I get angry or there is fear or boredom, I have to look, because that is, I can do something with myself. I cannot help other people. Yeah, if the other person wants to listen to what I have to say and his mind is attentive, maybe I can help, as Krishnaji could help many people, because people went to him and they were willing to listen to him. But generally, we can help ourselves if we are really interested in. But to help other people, it also is it depends on both the person who is talking and the person who is listening. It's a communion. When happens between two people, then there is something, a new thing happens.
So K himself said, he said not to seek any help, sir, even his help. But all the time I keep saying he has helped people when he himself said that is very dangerous.
Yeah. When you read
And even
commentaries
when
on
I
living,
quote other great people, sir, am I not making them authority? Again, one is saying that I don't need I need 3 meals a day, house and food, clothing and shelter. But K had a fantastic life. He loved a lot of lovely rich clothes and rich cars, and he enjoyed.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
Because
why
you are,
why do I bring in these divisions, sir? Like the rich and the poor, the happy and sad. Can I see that I'm comparing things? The comparison itself is a form of violence.
yes. Okay, now will you listen? Many, many
I'm listening.
people went to Krishna ji. If you read these commentaries on living, and there it was like a one-to-one dialogue. Sometimes one or two people, sometimes a group, and all kinds of people went, whether they were scientists or student or housewife or business or artist. All kinds of people went, and it is wonderful to really read what Krishnaji has written. Very gently, he takes the person to look at that person's mind, and Krishnaji is helping by asking the right question, and the people who are listening, they are understanding something about their own life. So it is possible to help. Even Buddha and many people have helped, and people went to them. Here I'm not helping you or you are not helping me. We are just speaking what we feel. And the other thing is, Krishna ji lived a very good life, very comfortable life. That is fine. I have nothing to say. Because when a person is really free, the person is not attached to that kind of life, can live also simple life. So what I'm saying is that basic necessities are required. Otherwise, we cannot be happy because our mind, if we don't get enough food, if we don't have shelter, um, clothes, then that could be create some problem. But if we have these basic necessities, and then we have a good mind to look at our own self, how these problems come in relationship, because our problems come from relationship with human beings, whether we work in the office or in the family. So when we have the curiosity, we can learn a lot. And Krishna ji's books can also help very much. They help me very much.
I question that anyway, sir. I mean, it's not about the physical aspect of it we are talking about. We're talking about the psychological aspect. I don't have food or clothes. I try for it. I mean, there's nothing wrong in it. I mean, I put in a lot of work. I have a lot of effort. I try to get food and clothes. There's no problem in it. We are getting caught in the physical and psychological. Can I look at that is the question.
Yeah. When you slow down your mind, then you can look. Otherwise, if you go, the mind is thinking, speaking very fast, then it's very difficult to really look.
So when I say that the other person is doing that, that is what is me. Can I observe that?
Yes, we can observe ourselves.
Can I observe that, sir?
That you can ask yourself. You see, you are asking a question to yourself, so you can answer. Yeah.
That is the point, sir. I don't seem to understand that. I keep on repeating the same thing.
Yeah. So only you can help yourself in that.
That is what
At
K
least
said.
initially, yeah.
But
because
I depend upon others. Am I not depending upon others? When I quote others, I'm depending upon others to solve my problem.
Yeah.
Whether it's Buddha or Krishnamurti, whoever it is.
Yeah. When, as long as, like Krishnamurti could ask Buddha, like it came in my mind, says, why you allow your disciples to chant Buddham Sharanam Gacchami? You are making your disciples dependent on you. And Buddha said, this is my imagination. Buddha said, as long as they are not free, they have not really looked at their own mind, they will remain with me because they are getting some help from Buddha. But once they are able to look at their own mind, then they don't need to remain like Buddha gives a, if you want to cross a river, you take a boat and you want to go from this side to the other side. And when you go to the other side, okay, then you don't carry the boat with you, right? You leave the boat there. So the teachings are like this boat. It can help you to go from this life of many, many problems to the life of freedom. Teachings are that. And so once you understand yourself, you don't need teachings. You may still talk about it, but you don't need to talk. You don't need to read any book because you are able to read the book of your own life. Okay, now
The boat example, functionally, it is common sense. I don't take the boat with me, but why am I carrying all these problems in my head is the question. That is not being answered. I'm talking about the psychological problems, not the functional. And what
Yeah.
Buddha said, I don't know what he said. That was about 2000 years back. And he said he did not allow anybody to write down his talks also. 300 years later, after he passed away, they started putting down in writing. So how much distortion they may have taken place, I really don't know. So why do I go back to
Yeah.
him all the time? What he said, I don't know what he said.
It doesn't matter who said that, but what is said is very important. If we can really see behind the word, what is that, what many people have said. Swamiji, Swami Chidananji, are you
Yes.
there?
I'm very much
Would you
here.
like? Yeah, would you like to say something? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I too would say that there is much doubt about the authenticity of a lot of things attributed to the Buddha or the Jesus or anybody. So we in this 21st century should not be carried away by their fame, their name, etc. But if there are some statements, no matter from where they came, which makes sense to us by the intrinsic merit of that sentence, I think there is nothing wrong in pondering on it. It could be from a Native American chieftain,
Yes.
or it could be from the famed Buddha, or it could be from some villain also. You know, even if some so-called villain of some Mahabharata had said something interesting,
Yeah.
without
That's
being,
coming.
without caring for his image in the society. We say, hey, what that guy said, apparently, we don't know whether he really said it, but the statement is thought-provoking. In that way, we could go about it.
Yeah.
So again, that is based on my conditioning, my likes and dislikes, biases and prejudices. Can I see that? The moment I say this makes a lot of sense to me, I'm back to my conditioning. I like Buddha. I like his teachings, and therefore I say what he's saying is true. It may not be, but I say it is true. Can I observe that is a question, sir? And even when I'm talking about sorrow, when I talk about sorrow also, can I see that sorrow makes me feel alive? So when it makes me feel alive, why is it I would like to end sorrow? I'm talking about the psychological aspect of it, not the functional. We're getting caught in the functional and psychological stuff.
Yeah.
Psychological aspect of what I'm talking about. It makes me feel alive. So why do I want to get rid of it?
Okay, that's fine then. If a person is happy with the sorrow, then
It
what
is makes me
anybody
feel
can do.
alive, sir. My jealousy, my wanting something, it makes me feel alive.
Yeah.
The fact that I'm reacting to you, the reaction makes me feel I'm alive. It is not you or me. I'm talking, as the human psyche.
Yes.
Yeah, that is well
So when we talk
taken.
about ending sorrow, can I look at that? Is my question.
Yeah.
I would say you may look at it directly without listening to anybody, without reading anybody. But a lot of people find a little help they get a little energy, they get a little solace. When they hear something, they say this is uplifting, but ultimately they will have to come back to their own, because their problem is unique. So we do acknowledge limitations of what he said or she said. However, it would not be wise for us to dismiss those statements. I have nothing to do with those statements. Take this book away from my room. That would be, I guess, one extreme. You should neither depend on the book nor throw it out of the window. It's good to have some material available. Finally, we need to examine: am I becoming dependent? Have I taken false comfort below the the umbrella of some big name? I guess we need to inquire into it. That point is well taken.
Can I make a comment?
Yes, yes.
I think the root cause of any kind of sorrow, whether it's becoming something or in a relationship or anything, is that things are not happening the way we expect them to be. This is not happening. This person is not behaving the way I expect him to be, or I'm not becoming something, or whatever it is. I think going beyond oneself and not having those expectations, for us, it's just me, me, me. And if only I go beyond that me and beyond that self, probably that would help us more to get that innate blissful happiness. I mean, it doesn't matter what kind of sorrow is it. I think everything comes out of because of our expectations on somebody or something. If only we recognize it as an expectation, which would never, why should that our expectation be, met by somebody? There is, it will not happen. So the best thing is recognizing that it is our expectations that are causing this unhappiness, and going beyond that and beyond ourselves probably will help us to be innately happy. And thank you so much for having me, and thank you, Chidanandji, for a wonderful talk. Just wanted to say.
I think in the
I have a
spirit.
question, sir.
Okay, go ahead.
How when I'm talking about sorrow, do I observe that sorrow is me? Again, I'm saying when it makes you feel alive, I'm putting it a different way. What is me? Can I observe that is a question?
Yeah.
When I talk about the rich and poor, again, it is what is me. So again, sorrow, ignorance, sorrow is nothing but it's the sorrow of ignorance. It's lack of self-knowledge which causes your sorrow. The knowing oneself.
Yes. Yes. That is what this dimension is, where knowing oneself, not through thinking, because thinking can go round and round with the intellect, but there is some other dimension that can look at how this I comes into existence.
I'm not looking for a process or a method or a system, sir. When I'm talking about it, you are saying thinking, but I didn't bring in the thought process at all. Can there be thinking without thought also? So when we talk about perception, I mean, I don't want to, you may talk about awareness, choiceless awareness, but even when I say choiceless awareness, am I observing choicelessly when I see something beautiful, something ugly, something which I see on the road I come across? Am I watching it choicelessly? If I'm watching choicelessly, then why do I react to it? It's my question. I need to observe that. That's all I'm saying. Nothing more than that. Nothing more than that. And this is my question to myself.
Yeah.
That's about all, sir. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you are really interested in your question, what will you do?
Hmm.
So that is, again, you're gone back in time, sir. You're
Yeah.
finding, you want a system, a method, and how.
Yeah, but what will you do?
There's nothing to be done, sir.
Okay.
Can I observe that is the question. When you say choicelessly aware, am I being choicelessly aware? That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
The moment I take any action, it is not choiceless awareness.
Yeah.
That's my point, sir.
Yes.
That's about all, sir. Nothing
Yes.
else.
Yes. You are asking a question to yourself, so only you can answer and you can find out whatever it is, whether yes or no. You know, whether you can see something without thinking or not. It's
See,
your
sir, authority in
I cannot see. I cannot
sir,
look at
it's
your
not you
mind.
and me, sir. It's not you
Yeah,
and me, sir. Again, can I see the authority in me is again the question. That's all there is, sir. That's all there is.
Anandji, you
Please, sir, go ahead, sir.
you said something very interesting about aliveness. Aliveness. So that type of aliveness is very much there present in present scenario when so much of violence, so much of protest, so much of all this thing is aliveness according to you. Lot of vitality in all those people who are reacting to each other. Is it that aliveness you are talking about?
Not aliveness, sir. I mean, you feel yourself alive. Yeah,
because
not aliveness.
all your questions or all my questions are subtle sorrows. That shows my emptiness. That shows my emptiness, my sorrows. I don't know. I'm seeking that. I'm seeking something from somewhere, from someone. So this is that state. Parikh ji is telling you all the time what is your real problem, and that you only will know it. But you continue to ask a number of questions, and then he has to say the same thing. When you said, I am talking to myself, this is my question, so the answer will come out of you only.
So that's the point, sir. I put a question, I'm not looking for an answer, it's one. And two, when I say I have read a book of Krishnamurti, I'm saying whether you read one book, I don't want to say you, so I say I. I'm being polite. I read one book of Krishnamurti and I understand.
That you know.
Yes, sir. When I say I read one book of Krishnamurti or I read 1,000 books of Krishnamurti, I have made that book an authority. That's my question. If you're going to give an answer, I'm back in time and back to my conditioning.
No, sir. Please listen. When you read something, then like when I read Krishnamurti first time, I read for about 10 minutes, one page or something like that. Then I left the book and then I was curious to look at my own mind and I forgot what Krishnamurti was talking about. So when that your attention is directed to your own mind, you will learn many, many things. And I would say that your way of speaking, looking, listening will change. There will be a lot of space you will feel between your words, between your sentences. But of course, this may seem not possible for you, and you may argue because your mind is very sharp, and so that is the real problem, I feel.
Cutting edge.
Can one observe the process or method I'm handing over to someone else? I'm showing how it can be done. Can observe that is a question, sir, again. Over, sir. With that, I'm over. Yeah, with that, it's over. Yeah, go ahead.
So you are giving answer, sir, Anandji.
No answer, sir. I put a question. I don't answer.
Actually, you answer as question.
I mean, you may look at it the way you want.
Yes.
And
that's not a problem.
Question. Yeah. And you are not different from me, sir. I am not different from you.
Thank you.
Yeah. May I ask question to Anandji
Yes,
that
sir, go ahead.
is it possible for you to sit quietly and not think anything? Is it possible?
So case is meditation is happening right now. I'm doing that. I'm observing my reactions. I'm observing the others' reactions too. I'm just watching that. That's about all. Okay. When I say I should sit quiet, I'm back to my again conditioning. I'm lost again there. The moment I decide to be quiet, I'm lost.
Yeah.
So can the meditation right now? Can I observe what is taking place between you and me? That's all
Yeah.
there is. That's all there is.
Yeah.
Nothing more than that.
Yes. Because I feel from my own experience or whatever you call that understanding comes to you. You don't understand. When your mind is really relaxed and not thinking much, something comes kind of insight. And this happens to many scientists also, like Archimedes. He was working too hard on the problem of to find out whether the crown was pure gold or some impurities. And he worked very hard, and then he left those thinking. And when he was having a bath and his mind was very relaxed, suddenly some answer came to him, some idea, insight. So for that insight to come in our psychological field, it will come by itself. We cannot go after it. And as long as we keep on asking questions, we are stirring the surface on it. The
So I
surface
mean,
of
it's not
water.
only
Yeah.
it's not just the great scientists. It happens to most of us many a times, which we don't pay attention to. Many a times when we're walking quietly, there's a problem which has been for years is going on. Suddenly something strikes and you forget about that. So we don't have to take the example of scientists. It happens to almost all of us. It happens, but we don't give much importance to it. And again, whatever I say, I'm back in time can observe that. If it was so simple as what you are saying, almost all of us would have been enlightened human beings.
Yeah, yes. Interesting. Modakji, you wanted to say something?
Sir, basically, I was only listening to Chidanandji and then Harshad Parikh and then interaction between Sachidanandji and Harshad Parikh and then between Sachidanandji and Chidanandji. But mostly questions which are very genuine to us, very genuine to the individual. They remain as questions, and all other things drop away.
Yeah.
To remain with a question is a very difficult thing. But if it is genuine to the individual, then he will remain with you. You don't have to say that you remain with the question. There is always duality going on when you are talking to somebody. When you are in communication with somebody, there is always duality in process itself. When you are communicating with somebody else, which is not you, you are able to understand yourself, and you are communicating with the other, but you are not able to understand him completely. It clearly shows that there is a separation between you and him. You can only understand up to the extent which your ability to understand him or anybody or anything in the world will allow you.
Yes.
And if it is a genuine question, then the question of being with the question, if it is not genuine to the individual, it will definitely drop. That is my saying or my comment about all this. There may be sorrow to a person, but that may not be sorrow to the other. Those basic differences one has to see in himself, and he will have to find answers to that with
That's my point.
remaining to himself. But if he goes on questioning others, his individual questions, then many different aspects of communication and relationship and all those things can appear. But when he is relating directly to the person, then something beautiful can reveal within himself, and that revelation may come as an insight. Might he be reading to Murti, reading into or anything, that insight may come that can silence all his questions, made for a temporary phase, but it will have some deeper impact on him. That is what I want to say, and that all I can know. That is my limitation. I can understand.
I mean, what you're saying, I agree.
I can understand anybody.
Again,
What I can conceive about him, what I can relate about him, what I can know about him when I am talking to somebody, and it is reflected in my limited consciousness about that person. In my duality, he appears, and that person appears, or anything in the world appears. That I am perceiving that thing. And in that perception, there is always a duality of the observer, of the thinker, and the experiencer. If we are flown, if we get flown with the darkness of that ego process, then we are not able to understand subtle things. That is my comment about this all.
Yeah.
I try to understand myself through communicating with all of you. All Harshad ji is saying, all Chidanand ji is saying, all, and Sachidanand sir all is commenting about that. And he is expressing his own views about this. And we have to listen to him and see where we are stuck in our manners. Manners means we are inner reflecting. Sir Verma ji, what you have to say? And
actually, Anand ji, what I see, all your
Verma ji,
questions are, all your
Verma ji,
questions
I have to warn you. Verma ji, I have to warn you. Only 1 minute is left.
yes, sir.
that you are,
This is
don't
your-
take that minute. Please don't take that minute, sir.
This is,
So,
no, I am not. I will give you. I have got
Anand,
my account
please,
of this.
thank you,
Minute,
sir,
I will
thank
give you 2
you.
minutes.
Thank you very
But
much.
I have to warn you again.
Thank
You are
you,
always
sir.
last but one.
Thank
You are not
thank
last but one.
thank-
Somebody else makes you last but one.
Okay,
This is what
sir.
is destiny.
So, Anand ji, most of your questions are answers which you
Yes,
need
sir.
affirmation from others. You give your answers as questions and you want affirmation.
That's
No, I don't think so, sir. Sorry, sir. I don't think that he needs
no,
affirmation.
sir. That's
He
not
has
true.
got a
That's not true.
questioning
That's
mind.
not true.
And
Hmm.
I believe that whatever Sachidanand is asking is he has got a questioning mind. That's what I feel.
And also, sir, when
Very
we
good.
are talking with each other, sir,
One
we are
minute,
trying
1
to
minute.
engage with each other. Yeah. And relation in which we see ourselves. When I'm talking to you, you and we are looking at ourselves, not the other person. That is what I'm trying to communicate. That's all this. Case here, relation is the mirror in which one sees oneself. That's all I'm saying. The moment I talk about you, I'm lost. Right now, we are trying to. You're acting as a mirror for me to understand myself. Can I observe that? It's a question, sir. That's all I'm saying. That's all, nothing more.
1 minute
Is
over.
there anything left, sir? 7:30 already.
Yes.
So because Chidanandji has confirmed to come back again on 11th, and I believe that Parikh sir will also be with us on 11th of the March. Subject will be given by you, Parikh sir, because last time Chidanandji has given the subject. Now it is your turn to give the subject, and start it with 25-30 minutes talk. So I am waiting for your topic to come on my WhatsApp. Thank you very much, sir. This is a wonderful, and sometimes it becomes sorrow. Sometimes dialogue becomes sorrow. Sometimes it becomes something more than this. So we need not to carry forward. We need not to carry forward. It should be dropped here and now, and we should await for the next dialogue in which we
Yes,
can
sir.
put up our
Yeah.
things in a better way.
Yes,
Everybody
sir.
has got
Right, sir.
Warning, warning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Next,
Sir, what is
Let-
what is what
let-
is to be
let-
done, sir?
next Sunday.
Yes, sir.
Sorry, Modak. Next Sunday, I am declaring the topic. Next Sunday, our speaker will be, and everybody has to come because today are 15 or 16 persons here. I hope that all of us will be there on Sunday at 11 o'clock. Is it okay? Now,
Yeah.
anybody wanted to say anything? He is welcome.
Nothing, sir. You have said it very rightly. But we have to ask Harshad Parekh sir to come on next Thursday.
Next,
Next Thursday, Harshad Parekh
Ah,
sir will have
next.
to come.
yeah, he will be coming. He has promised it.
Yes,
We
sir.
have-
Thank
you
you.
have missed
Sir,
it.
who
He
is-
said that, or Chidanandji already has written it that he will be coming. We are
Okay.
quite lucky that both of the speakers are with us.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
And,
sir. Thanks all
Krishnaji,
Thanks all
Sunday,
speakers and
Krishnaji,
participants.
Thank you.
Sunday.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
who participate. Awaiting eagerly on Sunday. I will see
Okay.
requested to Harshad Parekh sir also.
I think we have lost, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Right.
6 minutes.
Thank you. Please close this.
Yes,
Modak sir, please.
हाँ सर कर रहा हूँ सर